open up the character, and I've got the character set up as different Maya projects. So I've got an idle and I've got a walk. I could have many others. I could have a run, a jump, etc., etc. So I'm going to go to character idle, and I'm going to open that up. So I'm going to export this in two kind of separate stages. Firstly, I'm going to export the model with its textures, its controllers, its rig, and I'm going to export that out of Maya, and then I'm going to export the animation separately. So I'm going to open the outliner because the outliner shows everything in your scene and it's kind of easier to select things there. So in here we need all of the bones. So you just want to open all of those up until there's no more plus symbols to open. You can see all of these bones. Oops, still got a few more parts of the spine. There we go. So open all of those up. So as well as these bones, we also want the controllers, and we also want the various parts of the mesh that make up the character. So I want to shift select all of this stuff. So hold down shift. We don't want the lights, so don't select those. We want all of this stuff. Okay. So we're now going to export. So we're going to go to File, Export Selection. And what we're going to do when we export this, we're going to uncheck Bake Animation. We're going to uncheck Animation. We don't, because we're not exporting animation right now. Everything else should be fine. You just want to make sure that Embed Media is ticked. That's going to export your textures. And you can just call this model. And we can export this selection. Let's just export the documents because it's easier. Then you want to go into Unity. And we can just drag this model into our scene, or rather into the assets browser. Okay, so we should have it. We can drag it into the scene. You can see that it's been created here. We haven't got any textures yet though, so we're going to select the model in the assets. We're going to go to materials, and we'll go extract textures. That all looks good. And you can see that's brought in my textures. You can also import materials actually as well. So you can also go extract materials. We want those as well. Okay, so next we're going to create a folder. I'm just going to call this one materials. And I'm going to drag all of my textures and materials into that folder. I'm also going to create a folder for my model. And I'm also going to create one for my animations. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to export my animations. So this time I'm going to hold down shift and I'm going to drag select all of my animations. I'm going to File, Export Selection, Export FBX Export, and I'm going to tick Animation, Bake Animation. And where it says end frame 200, I'm going to make sure that that's right. So my ends at 120. Everything else will be fine. This will just be my idle. Export selection. And that's going to export everything including the animation. You can close that, that's cool. Okay, back in Unity, we can then drag in our idle into animations. And in that idle, we want to go into animation We can rename this idle. We also want to make sure that it's looping. So you can see it's 120 frames, that's correct. Make sure that it's looping. That all is fine, so I'm just going to click apply. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create an animator controller. So I'm just going to right click, I'm going to go to create, I'm going to go down to animator controller. And in my animator controller, I can open that up and I can drag in my idle. And you can see that's now my default state. Let's go back to my scene. I'm going to select my character. And I'm going to add component to the character. I'm going to add an animator. And in that empty controller box, I'm going to drop in my animator. Okay, so now if you hit play, it should all be connected. You can see that my idle has been attached. And I can do exactly the same thing with my run. So I can go back to Maya, open my run, or rather it's a walk actually. Once again, select all of my mesh, select all of my controllers and export it in exactly the same way, and then I can drag that into my animator controller. So that's how you can set that up. Hopefully that was useful. If you have any questions, do let me know. But that is the basics of setting that up.